Story begins. The radio crackled with static, then silence. Then something that made David Chen's hands stop moving entirely. A voice, female, calm, speaking in a language he didn't recognize, then switching to accented English. Sector 7 clear until 0400. Route Bravo compromised. Use Charlie. Repeat. Charlie route only. David stood in the back room of Chen Electronics, a radio repair shop his father had opened in 1987 in a strip mall outside Seattle. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The workbench was covered in circuit boards and capacitors, and the organized chaos of 3 decades of electronic repair work. In his hands, a Kenwood TS-440S ham radio transceiver, manufactured 1992. Brought in 2 days ago by an estate sale liquidator who said it came from a dead veterans collection. David had been running diagnostic tests when the voice emerged from the speaker. Not a live transmission, a recording stored in the radio's memory buffer, preserved for 30 years by a backup battery that somehow never died. He pressed rewind, played it again. The same voice. The same calm precision, the same coded language. Route Bravo compromised. Use Charlie. David pulled out his phone, opened a translation app, held it near the speaker as he played the recording a 3rd time. The app identified the language, Serbian. The translation appeared. Safe passage blocked. Take alternate road. David sat down slowly. This wasn't amateur radio chatter. This wasn't someone testing equipment. This was operational communication, military precision, life or death information. He checked the radio's internal clock. The recording was time-stamped. March 15th, 1996, 11:47 p.m. David ran a voice print analysis through audio software, pulled up military and civilian databases, cross-referenced the frequency, the timestamp, the language patterns. One match appeared. Name, Anja Petrović. Occupation, UN translator, Sarajevo. Status, deceased, June 12, 1994. Cause, shelling during siege of Sarajevo. Body, not recovered. David stared at the screen. The recording was from 1996. Anja died in 1994, 2 years before she was supposedly speaking on this radio. He played the recording again, listened to the voice, the calm authority, the absence of fear despite the content of the message. This was someone who had done this before, many times. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. David scrolled through the radio's memory, found 17 more recordings, all different dates, all between 1994 and 1997. All the same voice. A dead woman had been broadcasting for 3 years after her death. Or she had never died at all. David Chen was 38 years old, had a degree in electrical engineering from University of Washington, and had spent the last 12 years running his father's repair shop after the old man's stroke left him unable to work. The shop specialized in vintage electronics, ham radios, CB radios, old stereo equipment, things most people threw away, but a dedicated few still valued. David understood circuits and frequencies and signal propagation. He understood how radio waves moved through atmosphere and how encryption worked and how military communications differed from civilian. What he didn't understand was how a dead woman's voice could exist in a radio's memory. He spent the next 3 days analyzing the recordings, ran spectral analysis, checked for signs of digital manipulation or audio splicing. Found nothing. The recordings were authentic, analog, captured in real time by the radio's memory function. He transcribed every word. 17 recordings, average length 43 seconds, all following the same pattern. Location designation, time window, route status, alternative instructions. Sector 4, clear until dawn. Main road blocked. Use river path. Zone 12, mortar fire 0200 to 0600. Stay in basements. Do not move. Checkpoint 3, changed guards. New commander hostile. Avoid. Use checkpoint 7 instead. Each recording was operational intelligence, real-time battlefield information, the kind of data that saved lives. David pulled up historical records of the Bosnian War. Siege of Sarajevo, 1992 to 1996, the longest siege in modern warfare. Nearly 4 years. Civilians trapped, artillery shelling, sniper fire, humanitarian corridors that opened and closed without warning. People died trying to get food, trying to reach hospitals, trying to evacuate children, unless someone told them when it was safe to move. David played the first recording again, the one from March 1996. Route Bravo compromised. Use Charlie. Someone had been listening. Someone had received this information. Someone had changed their route and survived because a calm voice on a radio told them which way to go. He looked at the photograph of Anja Petrović he'd found in UN archives. Taken in 1993. She was 26 years old. Dark hair pulled back, serious expression. Wearing a blue UN vest, standing in front of a damaged building. The caption read, Anja Petrović, translator for UN Peacekeeping Forces, Sarajevo, killed in shelling, June 1994. Her dedication to helping civilians will not be forgotten. But the recordings said otherwise. David picked up his phone, called the estate liquidator. The radio you brought in last week, where did it come from? Estate sale in Tacoma. Guy died 3 months ago. Vietnam vet. Had a whole basement full of communications equipment. Do you have a name? Let me check. Papers rustling. Yeah, Robert Keller, Army Signal Corps. Served 68 to 72. Did he serve anywhere else after Vietnam? Not according to the discharge papers. Why? The radio has recordings from Bosnia, 1990s, trying to trace the source. Silence on the line. Then, Bosnia? That doesn't make sense. Keller never mentioned Bosnia. David hung up, stared at the radio. A Vietnam vet with a radio containing recordings from Bosnia. A dead UN translator who kept broadcasting for years after her death. Operational intelligence that saved unknown numbers of lives. None of it made sense. But the recordings were real, which meant someone needed to know about this. What happened next changed everything. David contacted the UN, filed a formal inquiry about Anja Petrović, requested access to her service records and death investigation. 3 days later, he received a phone call from a man who identified himself as Peter Novak, former UN peacekeeper, served in Sarajevo 1993 to 1995. You asked about Anja Petrović. Yes, I have recordings. I know. Your inquiry triggered an alert. I've been waiting 28 years for someone to ask about her. David felt cold. She's alive, isn't she? I don't know. But she wasn't killed in 1994. That was a cover story. Cover for what? Meet me. I'll explain everything. They met 2 days later in a coffee shop in downtown Seattle. Novak was 61, tall, gray hair, still carried himself like military. He arrived carrying a locked case. They sat in a back corner. Novak set the case on the table but didn't open it yet. What do you know about the siege of Sarajevo? Longest siege in modern warfare, 4 years, thousands of civilians killed. Civilians who were trapped, who needed food, medical care, evacuation routes. The UN tried to help, but we were limited, restricted. Politics and protocols meant we couldn't always protect people when they needed it most. Novak's hands rested on the case. Anja Petrović was our translator. Brilliant. Spoke 5 languages: Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian, English, French. She could talk to everyone, negotiate with everyone. She knew the city better than any of us. What happened to her? In June 1994, she was working at a checkpoint when Serbian forces overran the position. 3 UN peacekeepers were killed.
Anja was taken. David's chest tightened. Kidnapped? That's what we thought. We reported it as a combat casualty. Easier than admitting we lost a translator to hostile forces. But she survived. She did more than survive. Novak opened the case. Inside, photographs, documents, letters. He pulled out a photograph, showed it to David. The image showed a makeshift radio setup in what looked like a basement. Wires running everywhere. A woman sitting at the equipment, face partially visible. Dark hair. Same bone structure as the UN photograph. This was taken in 1995, 13 months after she was supposedly killed. David stared at the photo. Where? Underground, resistance network. After Serbian forces took her, she escaped. Went underground, literally. Joined a civilian resistance group operating in the tunnels beneath Sarajevo. Novak pulled out more photographs, maps, handwritten notes. The resistance had access to captured military radios. They monitored enemy communications, Tracked troop movements. Identified safe corridors for civilians trying to evacuate. And Anja? She became their voice. She'd broadcast on frequencies she knew civilians monitored, ham radio operators, aid workers, anyone with a receiver. She'd tell them when it was safe to move, which routes were clear, where to find food and water. David pulled out his phone, showed Novak the recordings from the Kenwood. Like these? Novak listened, his eyes closed. When the recording finished, he didn't speak for a long moment. That's her. That's Anja. How did these recordings end up in a dead veteran's radio? Novak smiled, sad, tired. Because we weren't the only ones listening. Robert Keller wasn't just a Vietnam vet. He was a ham radio operator. Spent his retirement monitoring international frequencies. He picked up Anja's broadcasts, started recording them, archiving them. Did he know what they were? He knew they were important. He contacted me in 1997.
Said he'd been recording a woman broadcasting from Sarajevo. Wanted to know if the UN knew about her.
What did you tell him?
I told him to keep recording, keep archiving, because officially, Anja didn't exist. The UN couldn't acknowledge her. The resistance couldn't protect her if she was exposed. But if someone documented her work, someday the truth could come out. Novak gathered the photographs, put them back in the case. Keller recorded her for 3 years, until the broadcasts stopped in 1997. We never knew why. Never knew if she was captured, killed, or just went silent. And you never looked for her? We couldn't. Looking meant exposing her, exposing the network, getting people killed. David felt anger building. So you just let her disappear? We let her survive. Novak's voice was hard, which is what she chose, which is what she fought for. He stood to leave, paused. If you're thinking about trying to find her, don't. If she's alive for a reason.
If she's dead, She's been dead for 30 years. Either way, digging this up helps no one. Novak left. David sat alone with the radio and the recordings, and a decision that felt impossible. Let it stay buried, or find the truth. He chose truth. Over the next 6 weeks, David became obsessive. He digitized all 17 recordings, enhanced the audio, analyzed background sounds for environmental clues. In recording number 4, faint sounds of church bells. He identified the pattern. Sarajevo Cathedral. Specific chime sequence used only between 1994 and 1996. In recording number 9, distant artillery. He matched the acoustic signature to Serbian 120mm mortars, common in the siege. In recording number 12, a child crying in the background. Anja's voice shifted mid-broadcast, softer, comforting, then back to operational precision. She wasn't just broadcasting intelligence, she was living among the people she was trying to save. David found online forums for Bosnian War veterans, Aid workers, journalists who had covered the siege. He posted carefully worded questions. Looking for information about civilian radio operators in Sarajevo, 1994 through 1997. Most responses were dead ends, but one caught his attention. A message from someone calling themselves Tunnel Rat. I remember the voice. We all did. She saved my family. David replied immediately, asked for details. The response came 8 hours later. I was 14. My mother was sick, needed medicine from the hospital across the city. Radio operator told us when to go, which streets to use. We made it. Mother survived. Never knew who the voice was, just knew she was an angel. David asked if Tunnel Rat had any idea what happened to the broadcaster. Broadcasts stopped in August 1997. We thought she was killed. Some people said she escaped. Nobody knew for sure. David sat back, stared at his computer screen. August 1997. He checked the final recording from Keller's radio, dated August 23, 1997. The message was different from the others. This is the last transmission. Routes are stable. Ceasefire holding. You don't need me anymore. Stay safe. Remember, courage is quieter than fear. Then silence. 27 years of silence. David made a decision that would change everything. He booked a flight to Sarajevo. Bosnia in January was cold and gray. Snow covered the mountains surrounding the city. The scars of war were still visible. Buildings with bullet holes, mortar damage repaired but not erased. Memorials to the dead on street corners. David had contacts now, online connections who had agreed to meet him. Tunnel Rat was first. Real name, Emir Hadjic. Now 42, working as a civil engineer, married, 2 children. They met at a cafe near the Old Town. Emir brought photographs, his family in 1996, his mother looking thin and exhausted, himself as a teenager carrying water containers. The voice saved us 6 times. Different routes, different warnings, always accurate. We weren't the only ones. Everyone in our building listened. Maybe 200 people followed her instructions over those years. Did you ever try to find her after the war? Some people did. Nobody succeeded. It was like she vanished. David showed him the recordings on his laptop, played one. Emir's eyes filled with tears. That's her. Exactly how I remember. Calm, like she knew we'd be okay if we just listened. Over the next week, David met 14 more people. All had stories. A doctor who received warnings about shelling near his clinic, evacuated patients, saved 37 lives. A teacher who got her students to safety following broadcast instructions. All 23 survived. A father who carried his injured son across the city using routes the voice provided. Made it to a field hospital. Son survived. Now a lawyer in Germany. Every person David talked to remembered the voice. Remembered how it felt to hear her in the darkness. How her calmness made them brave.
But none of them knew who she was or what happened to her.
Until David met Marko Bilic. Marko was 67. Former resistance fighter. Spent 3 years in the tunnels beneath Sarajevo running supplies and gathering intelligence. They met in his apartment. Walls covered with photographs from the war. A shrine to people he'd lost. David explained why he was there. Played the recordings. Marko listened without expression. When the final recording finished, he stood. Walked to his bookshelf. Pulled out a notebook. Old, water-damaged, held together with rubber bands. I knew her. David's heart stopped. Anja? We called her Speaker. Never used real names underground. Security. But yes, that was her name. Marko opened the notebook. Pages filled with handwritten notes. Frequencies, broadcast times, message logs. She joined the resistance in August 1994, 2 months after her death. She was different from the rest of us. Educated, UN trained. She understood strategy, communication.
How to reach people without getting caught.
What did she do? Everything. Translated intercepted enemy communications, coordinated supply runs. But her most important work was the broadcasts. 3 years, hundreds of messages. She estimated 200 civilians survived directly because of information she provided. David felt dizzy. Where is she now? Marko closed the notebook. I don't know. What happened in August 1997? Why did she stop? Marko walked to the window, looked out at the city. The ceasefire was holding. War was ending. The resistance was dissolving. People were coming out of hiding, going back to normal lives. And Anja? She couldn't go back. The UN thought she was dead. Serbian forces had her on execution lists. She had no official identity, no documents, no legal existence. So she disappeared. She chose invisibility. Some people from the resistance helped her. New identity, new papers. We got her out of Bosnia.
Last I heard, she was somewhere in Western Europe, but that was 27 years ago.
David felt desperation building. Someone must know. Someone must have stayed in contact. Marko turned to face him. Why do you want to find her? Because people deserve to know. Because she saved 200 lives and nobody even knows her name. Because silence isn't the same as safety anymore. Marko studied him for a long moment, then reached into his pocket, pulled out a business card. Old, worn. There was one person she trusted, a journalist, French, covered the siege. Anja gave her an interview in 1997, off the record, just in case. He handed David the card. Marie Laurent, documentary filmmaker, Paris. If anyone knows, it's her. Paris was a 10-hour train ride from Sarajevo. David made the journey with the card in his pocket and recordings on his laptop, and a feeling that he was close to something that mattered. Marie Laurent's production company was in the 11th arrondissement.
Small office, walls covered with film posters, awards on shelves,
decades of documentary work. Marie was 73, sharp eyes, silver hair cut short. She listened to David's story without interrupting,
watched him play the recordings. When he finished, she sat in silence for 2 full minutes. Then, "I've been waiting for this." David's breath caught. "You know where she is?" "I made a promise 27 years ago. Anja gave me an interview on condition that I never publish it while she was alive. Never reveal her location. Never expose her. But, I could tell her story after she died. Use the interview. Honor her work. She made me promise because she knew someday it would matter." Marie stood, walked to a filing cabinet, unlocked it, pulled out a folder. Inside, photographs, interview transcripts, a VHS tape labeled Anja, August 1997, confidential. "I've kept this for 27 years, waiting, checking obituaries, searching for her name in death records. Nothing."
Either she's still alive, or she died under a different name, and I'll never know. She handed the folder to David. "I'm 73. I don't know how much longer I have. If you're willing to finish this, I'll help you. But understand, if she's alive and doesn't want to be found, we stop. Her choice matters more than the story." David nodded. Agreed. Marie picked up the VHS tape. "Let me digitize this. Then we watch it together." 3 hours later, they sat in Marie's editing suite. The digitized interview loaded on screen. Marie pressed play. The image appeared. Anja Petrović, 30 years old, sitting in a dim room, face partially shadowed, voice clear. Marie's voice off camera. "Why are you doing this interview?" Anja: "Because someone should know. If something happens to me, someone should know what we did, what we tried to do."
I can't
Tell
believe
me
this.
about the broadcasts.
What is
They
it?
separated us.
It's just so
Different
overwhelming. I'm
hospitals,
here.
different cities.
So many memories
Told
here.
us the program was classified.
He was
Told
so
us
young.
never to contact each other. Told us we'd be prosecuted if we talked. And you listened. Of course we listened. We were soldiers. We followed orders. For 53 years. Carver's voice cracked. What else were we supposed to do? Marcus pulled out his phone, showed Carver the photograph, the team in 1970. You were supposed to remember what you did. You were supposed to honor it, not bury it. Carver stared at the photograph. Tears formed in his eyes. We saved 47 people. I know. 19 missions. 3 years. We were kids. I was 24. Elena was 23. And they gave us impossible tasks and told us to make them possible. And you did. We did. And then they erased us. Told us it never happened. Told us those people were never saved. Told us we were never there. Carver picked up the medical bag, held it like something sacred. Is she okay? Elena? Is she healthy? She's 78, still sharp, still volunteering, still saving people, just differently. Does she? Carver's voice broke. Does she ever talk about us? About the team? Marcus nodded. All the time. She told me about every mission, every name, every face. She never forgot. Carver wiped his eyes. I need to see her. She said you can't. The agreement, fuck the agreement. Carver stood. I've spent 50 years following orders that came from people who are dead. I'm 81 years old. Elena's 78. We don't have time for promises anymore. Thursday, 1 p.m. Marcus stood in the hospital volunteer wing holding his phone.
He had called Elena that morning, told her to come to the hospital, told her it was important, told her someone needed to meet her. She arrived at 1:15, walked down the hall toward the reading room, saw Marcus standing outside. "What's going on?" Marcus opened the door. Inside, Dr. James Carver sat in a chair by the window. The medical bag rested on the table beside him. Elena stopped walking. Her hand went to her mouth. 53 years collapsed into nothing. She stood in the doorway. He sat by the window. Neither moved. Marcus stepped back, gave them space, but he stayed close enough to hear. Elena spoke first, her voice barely a whisper. "James." "Elena." "We weren't supposed to." "I know." "The agreement." "I don't care anymore." Carver stood, slowly. His knee still bothered him after 5 decades. Elena walked toward him, each step deliberate, controlled, like she was afraid sudden movement would shatter the moment. They stopped 3 feet apart, looked at each other. Two old people who used to be young soldiers who used to save lives in places that didn't exist. Elena's voice cracked. "You look old." Carver laughed, tears running down his face. "So do you. I thought about you. Every Thursday. I'd see your name on the schedule. Know you'd been here. Walk the same halls. Touch the same doors. I did the same. Every Monday. I'd wonder if you were reading to children, if you were still sharp, if you still remembered. I never forgot." "Neither did I." They moved closer. Carver reached out, touched Elena's left arm, where the scar was, where the shrapnel hit in 1970. "Does it still hurt?" "Only when it rains." "Mine too." He touched his knee. They stood like that, old soldiers acknowledging old wounds. Then Elena pulled him into an embrace, not gentle, hard, desperate, like she was holding on to something she thought she'd lost forever. Carver held her back just as tightly. Marcus turned away, gave them privacy, walked down the hall, sat in the waiting area. 10 minutes passed. When he returned, Elena and Carver were sitting at the table, the medical bag open between them. They were going through each item, remembering. Elena held the surgical scissors. "You carved this after the mission in February 1970.
Carver nodded. "Still here, because we were, against all odds."
Pelican crashed 6 months later, training exercise stateside. Survived the war, died in peacetime. I went to his funeral. Nobody knew what he'd really done. Nobody could say. They kept pulling out items, each one a memory, each one a story. Marcus documented everything, photographed them together, recorded their conversation. Because this mattered. This was history. What happened next changed everything. Over the following weeks, Elena and Carver met regularly, started documenting their missions properly, not hidden in gauze rolls, not in classified files, in clear, detailed testimony. Marcus helped them organize the information, built a comprehensive database, cross-referenced everything with declassified military records. They identified 31 of the 47 people they rescued, found 7 still alive. Marcus contacted them. 3 responded. One was a retired lawyer in Oregon, captured in 1969, held for 4 months, rescued by Elena's team in December. He was 76 now, married, 3 kids, 7 grandchildren. He wept when Marcus told him Elena was alive. I thought she was dead. They told me she died in 1971. I wanted to thank her. I spent 30 years trying to find her. Couldn't. Thought I'd never get the chance. Marcus arranged a call, put Elena on the phone. This is Elena Moretti. Silence. Then, Crosswind 7? Elena's hands shook. Yes. You pulled me out of a cage in Laos, December 14th, 1969, 3 a.m. You carried me 6 miles through jungle because I couldn't walk. You operated on my leg with a pocket knife and morphine. You saved my life. Elena closed her eyes. Daniel Reeves. I remember. You remembered my name? I remembered all of them. Reeves sobbed, couldn't speak for a full minute. When he could, he said, "Thank you. I've waited 50 years to say that. Thank you." Elena cried.
First time Marcus had seen her cry. You don't have to thank me.
Yes, I do. You gave me my life back. I got to raise my children, meet my grandchildren, live because of you. They talked for an hour. When it ended, Elena sat in silence for a long time. Then she looked at Marcus. We need to do this right. We need to tell the whole story. All 47 names, all 19 missions, everything. Marcus nodded. How? The way it should have been done 50 years ago. Publicly, officially, with honor. 6 months later, the Smithsonian National Museum of American History announced a new exhibit, Shadows in Service, the untold story of Operation Nightingale. Operation Nightingale, the classified rescue program that ran from 1968 to 1971. 47 extractions, 19 missions, 5 operatives. The exhibit opened in March 2025. Central display, the medical bag, fully preserved, each item labeled. The morphine case with tally marks,
The surgical scissors with engravings, the gauze rolls with hidden notes.
beside it, photographs, young soldiers in jungle fatigues, maps with coordinates marked, mission reports, testimonies, and 2 people standing together for the first time in public. Lieutenant Elena Moretti, age 78, Lieutenant James Carver, age 81. The dedication ceremony was small, invitation only, 50 attendees. 7 were people they rescued. Marcus stood in the back, watching. A museum curator approached the podium. Today we honor 5 operatives who served in a program that officially never existed, who saved 47 lives in operations that officially never happened, who spent 50 years in silence because acknowledgement meant prosecution. The curator gestured to Elena and Carver. Lieutenant Moretti and Lieutenant Carver are the last surviving members of Operation Nightingale.
Their team included Lieutenant Marcus Webb, Communications, Captain Sarah Yates, Tactical, and Chief Warrant Officer Robert Chen, Pilot. All 3 are deceased.
But their work lives on, in the 47 people they saved, in the families those people built, in the generations that exist because 5 soldiers chose to risk everything for strangers. The curator paused. Elena Moretti carried a medical bag for 3 years. In that bag, she documented every mission, every name, every life. And when the program ended, she buried that documentation, not to destroy it, to preserve it. until the right time, until someone who would care found it and chose to tell the truth. The curator looked at Marcus. That person was Marcus Riley, hospital archivist, who found the bag, who found Elena, who refused to let this story stay buried. Marcus felt 50 pairs of eyes turned toward him. He hadn't expected to be part of the ceremony. The curator continued.
This exhibit exists because one person cared enough to search.
One person believed a dead woman's story. One person chose truth over convenience. Marcus looked at Elena. She smiled, nodded. The curator invited survivors to speak. Daniel Reeves went first, walked slowly to the podium, used a cane. 76 and still healing from wounds 50 years old. I was 19 when I was captured. Thought I'd die in that cage. Then one night, someone cut the lock, whispered, "American Medical, you're safe." That someone was Elena Moretti. He turned to face her. She carried me 6 miles, operated on me in the dark, kept me alive. And when I asked her name, she said, "It doesn't matter. You're going home." His voice broke. It mattered. It matters. Elena Moretti, James Carver, Marcus Webb, Sarah Yates, Robert Chen. Those names matter. Those people matter. And I'm standing here 50 years later because they chose to be heroes when nobody was watching. 6 other survivors spoke.
Each one told a story. Each one thanked the team. Each one proved that 47 wasn't just a number. It was 47 lives, 47 futures, 47 reasons why silence was wrong. When they finished, the curator invited Elena to speak. She stood slowly, walked to the podium, looked at the medical bag under museum glass. Her voice was steady. I didn't want recognition. I wanted to do the job. The job was saving lives. We saved 47. We lost 3 team members doing it. That's the trade. That's the cost. She looked at the survivors. I'm grateful you're here. Grateful you lived. Grateful you built families and careers and futures. That's what we fought for. Not medals, not ceremonies. Just the chance for people to go home. She touched the podium. But I'm also angry. Angry that we had to hide. Angry that our team was erased. Angry that Marcus Webb died in 1983 and nobody at his funeral could say what he really did. Angry that Sarah Yates died alone in 1997 because she was too afraid to contact us.
Angry that Robert Chen never got to tell his children why he had nightmares. Her voice hardened. We served. We sacrificed. We succeeded. And we were told to forget, to bury it, to pretend it never happened. She looked at the crowd. But it did happen. We were there. Those missions were real. Those lives were saved. And silence doesn't change that. It just makes the truth harder to find. She stepped back. The room erupted in applause. Not polite, thunderous. People stood. Survivors, family members, veterans who understood. Elena stood at the podium, did not smile, did not wave, just nodded once. Acknowledgement, not celebration. Because 47 people were saved, but 3 teammates died, and no amount of applause could balance that equation. After the ceremony, Marcus found Elena standing in front of the medical bag display. She was alone, staring at the tally marks in the morphine case.
47.
Marcus stood beside her. You okay?
I don't know. I spent 50 years hiding. Now I'm standing in a museum with my face on a plaque. It doesn't feel real.
It's real. Elena touched the glass case.
I keep thinking about the ones we didn't save. The missions that failed. The times we got there too late.
How many?
4. 4 operations where we arrived and found bodies instead of prisoners.
Her hand dropped.
Nobody talks about those. Nobody makes exhibits about failure. But those 4 missions haunt me more than the 47 successes.
Marcus understood. You can't save everyone.
I know, but knowing doesn't make it easier.
They stood in silence. Then Elena turned to him.
Thank you for finding the bag, for believing me, for making this happen.
You made it happen. I just documented it.
No, you gave me permission to stop hiding. That's different. That's important.
She reached into her pocket, pulled out a small object, handed it to Marcus. A military challenge coin, old, worn. Operation Nightingale insignia on one side, number 47 on the other. This was given to the team after the last mission, right before they disbanded us. We each got one. I've carried mine for 53 years. Marcus tried to hand it back. I can't take this. You already did. The moment you opened that bag, you became part of the story. Now you carry it forward. Make sure people remember. Marcus closed his hand around the coin. It was warm from her pocket. 53 years of carrying. Now his turn. 3 years later, Marcus Riley stood in his office at the Smithsonian. He was 32 now. Official title? Curator of Modern Military History. His desk was covered with research materials, letters from veterans, photographs from family members, documentation of classified operations slowly being declassified. The phone rang. Marcus Riley.
Mr. Riley,
My name is Catherine Webb. I'm calling about the Operation Nightingale exhibit. How can I help you? My father was Marcus Webb, communications officer. He died in 1983. I was 12. He never told me what he did in the war. Never told me about the team, about the missions. Her voice cracked. I saw the exhibit last week, saw his name, saw his photograph, read what he did, and I realized my father was a hero, and I never knew. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Your father saved lives. 19 missions, 47 people. He was essential. I know that now, but I didn't know it when he was alive, and I can't thank him. Catherine was crying. I wanted to thank you for making the exhibit, for telling his story, for giving me the chance to know who my father really was. I'm sorry you had to wait so long. So am I. But at least I know now. At least his story is told. After the call ended, Marcus sat in silence. This was the 4th family member who had called that month. Children of operatives who served in classified programs. People who spent their whole lives wondering why their parents had nightmares, why they didn't talk about the war, why they seemed haunted by things they couldn't name. Now they knew, and knowing changed everything. Marcus opened his email, saw a new message from Elena. Subject, thank you. Body, Daniel Reeves died last night, peacefully, surrounded by family. His daughter called me, said he was grateful. Said he told his children about the rescue before he passed. Said he made sure they knew my name. That's 7 survivors gone now. 40 left. Clock's ticking. But the story lives. That's what matters. Elena. Marcus replied, "The story lives, and we'll make sure it keeps living." Marcus. He looked at the challenge coin on his desk. Number 47. 47 lives. 47 futures. 47 reasons why hidden truth matters. Marcus picked up the phone.
Called the museum director. "I want to expand the exhibit, add oral histories, testimonies from families, documentation of other classified rescue programs. Make it a full archive." Approved. "How much space do you need?" "All of it. This story is bigger than one team. This is about every person who served in shadows, every mission that officially never happened, every life saved in silence." "Build it. I'll get you funding." Marcus hung up, opened a new file on his computer, titled it, "The Ones We Remember," started typing. Because Elena was right. The story lived, and it was his job now to make sure it kept living. Not just for 47 people, but for every person who served and wasn't allowed to be acknowledged. Every soldier who died with classified secrets. Every family that never knew why their loved one was different. The medical bag sat in museum glass 3 floors above him, but its story was still being written. Every day, every call, every family member who found answers. Marcus looked at his computer screen. The cursor blinked, waiting. He began to write, and Elena Moretti's truth became something bigger. Became proof that silence eventually breaks, that buried stories eventually surface, that some people spend decades waiting for someone to care enough to listen. Marcus was listening now, and the world was hearing. Have you ever discovered a hidden truth about someone you thought you knew? Share your story in the comments. And if you believe the people who served in silence deserve to be remembered, subscribe. These stories need to be told. These lives need to be honored. And history should never erase the ones who saved lives when no one was watching.